Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bearded Mystic podcast. And I'm your host, Rahul N Singh. Thank you for joining today. And today I want to talk about the darkest time in my life. And I want to talk about it because I did talk about it briefly on my conversation with Noe Rata. If you haven't watched that, please do. It's a really good conversation where I got to share this time in my life. And it's the first time I've kind of shared it in an open way on a podcast anyway. So the darkest time in my life was when my guru died. Now, when my guru is Babaji, who I often refer to. When Babaji died in 2016, that was the darkest time in my life. It was a time where I felt like I had lost everything. And this was because when you lose your spiritual guru, it's not literally losing somebody in your life. It's not just, I grew up listening to this, and it was practically true. Your guru loves you more than your own family, your own friends, your own. That's not diminishing the love of your family and friends, but what I could say was true was that I felt, especially for me, this is personal to me, that Babaji loved me like anything, and I loved him like anything, and so when you lose that person in your life, that's difficult in itself. You when you lose a human being, and Babaji was such where, he was an amazing human being. You couldn't fault him. He was humble, kind-hearted, sweet-natured. Had a great sense of humor. There's so many great qualities, and and I think losing that was one thing. But the biggest one was losing the spiritual guru. Now, it was the first time, obviously, I have experienced such a thing, where you physically lose the guru. And during that time, I remember before, so in where I go to, the Nonduality mission, the successor is named, and there was 3 days when the successor wasn't named, but it became his wife, who was the next successor, and then now it's his daughter, his and his wife's daughter. But I'll go into that in a minute. So those 3 days when there was no mention, at least not in my head, like who is going to be the next guru. In my head, I was still distraught that I'd lost someone so close to me, so dear to me. And the loss was more so to do with the kind of guidance and help that I got spiritually. Babaji was someone where I would go and speak to him about anything and everything. If I had a problem in life, I would think of him. More or less the material problems I addressed in my time when I used to prayer or meditation. I would converse with him through that way, but when it came to spiritual issues that I had or problems, I would address him directly about it. And our conversations were somewhat funny because of that. I would kind of take everything I said lightheartedly, and he would give solutions in a lighthearted way, but they were proper solutions to my problems. And the one thing that if I could sum up his advice, or the way he tended to give advice, it was to empower you to realize who you truly are. And it was always coming back to this. He would turn around and say, well, I don't understand why you're saying this. And at first I used to think he's talking to Rahul, the person. But now I look back and I'm like, he never talked to Rahul, the personality. He talked to the Atma that was within. And look how many, it's taken me, he died in 2016, it's taken me 9 years. And it's crazy to say 9 years. It scares me to think that it's been 9 years. But then I realized, you know what, he never addressed me as the person. Yes, obviously you play the game of name and form, but when it came to the spiritual problems, it was never a personal thing that he interacted with me. It was more from a real spiritual place. And with Babaji, the one teaching I really kind of had a lot of gratitude for was his exploration of oneness. And this oneness topic was something I'd kind of dealt with before he announced kind of a convention in that name. But I was thinking about this a lot, the oneness between a master and disciple, and I kept thinking about this so much. And in 2012, I remember releasing a book, and that's when the relationship changed. And I think it was more to do with the oneness experience. I had a real physical experience of oneness, very tangible, where there was this experience of being expanded and being one with the universe. And that happened on 2 occasions, once during meditation and once when I was out on a walk. And so obviously I had these experiences as my base, but they're all, if I go back to those experiences, it was all because of one thing that I had got from the Nirvana mission since a young age. And that was, there's 2 things. One, you have satsang, where, you're constantly being reminded about this formless, this Nirvana. Then there is the aspect of, Brahm Gyan. So when you have the knowledge of the ultimate self, so to speak, the ultimate presence, the ultimate existence, the ultimate kind of consciousness. So if I go back to those experiences, in my head, I followed that route. And that route, the gyan that is given, is actually done now I've realized, it's done in the Upanishadic tradition. Like, it's actually a traditional method. It's not as much as it's kind of modern in some ways, but it's actually following the traditional method, where you look at what's being superimposed, you remove, and then you negate the superimposition, and reality is revealed to you. And as much as I say easy here, in my opinion, it's only when this knowledge is given to you, as you experience it directly between the master or the master's representative and the disciple that's open to that knowledge, does it actually work. So when I had this, when I received this knowledge many times, but my experiences were always based on this. So when I read the Upanishads, it spoke to me because I read it with that knowledge, that Brahm Gyan in my mind. When I read the Bhagavad Gita, same thing. When I read the works of Meister Eckhart or Rumi, or even Buddhist texts, even some science books. I used to read some stuff on science, and it would just remind me of the Brahm Gyan. And so I realized that whenever I shared spiritual questions or spiritual explorations with Babaji, he was addressing me in a different manner, and I was, and that was the same thing. Like, I addressed him as as Ishvara. Now, in the Nirvana mission, we term Ishvara and Nirgun as the same, but if we had to truly look at it, Nirgun Nirvana, is there. It's here. It's the transcendent and the immanent, but more so the immanent is Ishvara, so the personal God. how I related this to Advaita Vedanta, because I was studying Advaita Vedanta even back then, and I even mentioned this to Babaji, that this is the one philosophy that's making a lot of sense to me. And then I realized, and I realize this now, not necessarily then, that the Guru in the Nirvana mission is seen as Ishvara, and that makes so much sense, and it's so much easier to connect with, because in the beginning of a spiritual journey, you need a physical form to kind of connect with. So when you have that physical form, you connect with that physical form, that takes you to the formless, to the Nirgun. It just makes absolute sense. So you see the manifestation, and you go to the unmanifest, and it was such an easy, and is such an easy process, that now I look back, I'm like, this was crazy that I was experiencing all this, and I didn't even have words for this. I didn't have any way of explaining this. And, and somewhat, even till today, regardless of Babaji's, and now I'm out of that dark time, but what I would say is that Brahm Gyan element, that ultimate knowledge element, the realization of this formless element, that never left. That was with me. Even I remember, if I recall back to the moments when I saw Babaji's body in front of me, I just remember that only my awareness really remained in that moment. Even grief hadn't turned up at that point. I was still in the kind of shock that this had happened. Because, and actually the context for that is, in a month's time, Babaji was going to conduct me and my wife's marriage. So, I was super excited about that. And I would say, and even then, even in my marriage ceremony, even though Babaji wasn't physically there, Satguru Mata Savindaji, who was his wife, who became the Guru, even though she wasn't physically there, I kind of still felt that they were there. And it was really weird. Like, I remember saying to my wife, I don't know how to, because my dad asked me if I wanted to say a few words, and I couldn't, because all I kept feeling was their presence, and it was bringing tears to my eyes at the time. I mean, it was just crazy. So if someone looked back and they were like, "Oh, you were crying on your wedding," it was because their presence was overwhelming. And again, it was just, maybe it was the emotions at that time. But like I mentioned, the awareness was still there, and that awareness of the formless was still very present. It was the only thing that was kind of keeping me going, so to speak. So, my wife being the best savior, the best person to kind of take me out of this situation, to today, where, the current master is Babaji's daughter. But there's one thing I noticed, even when Babaji's wife was the Guru, that something had carried on, and I didn't have words for what that was. I just recognized it. But my mind was so, and I want to say it's my ego, it was just so hell-bent on seeing if there was difference. And by constantly seeing difference, by constantly, it was just constantly playing this game. But inside of me, inside my heart, all I knew was there was a sameness, and I didn't know what to, and I think my mind didn't know what to do with it, because probably it was still dealing with Babaji's loss. And even till today, like, I would say I've dealt with the loss, like, okay, I accept that he's gone, but I miss him every day. Like, I don't think, there's not been a day since May 13, 2016, when I found out, that I've not thought about him. There will be something that will happen in the day, or there'll just be the waking up and just thinking of him, and that still happens. But recently, this this feeling has got transferred to Mataji, Mata Sidikshaji, who's the current guru. But the reason why the base is there is, so if Babaji gave me oneness, then in Mataji's time, funny enough, and this is why I find my journey fascinating. But let me just give a little segue. Let me just take one step back. In this time, this was before Babaji's death, but there was a time when I also took the knowledge from the Brahma Kumaris, and in my opinion, the knowledge of the Brahma Kumaris just didn't sit well with me. It felt very childish, and wasn't as deep as I think people there thought it was. But if it serves a purpose for their followers, there's nothing. It just didn't work for me. So there's that. Then. So anyway, so I've done a bit of searching. I have gone to other places of worship, other gurus, and I've met them, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I give them the same respect, and I see, and I realize. So you have to see the guru in everything, and that's what makes it easier. So anyway, so as my mind is like wrestling with the sameness and it's trying to see difference, right? So I'm going through that. Then comes Swami Sarvabhayanandaji. Someone shows me a video, a friend showed me a video, sent it to me. I delayed watching that video for a while, and then I kind of watched it. It was the first video I watched of his was about no mind. So I watched that, and I was like, wow, this guy speaks a lot of sense. So then for ages, I just kept listening to his teachings and his sharings. And, we've also interviewed him on this podcast. So I obviously, I explore his message, which is about consciousness and awareness. And lo and behold, Mataji's main topic, my current guru, his main topic is about consciousness. And it's just, I'm in awe. And I just don't understand that whenever I keep developing, the guru's like, oh yeah, I'm with you on this. Like, we're talking about the same thing. And so having that experience, I don't know if I've worded it correctly or whether it makes sense or whether it's just a word salad, I'm not sure. But it just, there's been a continuity, and I've not realized the continuity until I've actually, in the past, say, year, I've just rested in awareness. And when I've rested in awareness, everything has just been being discovered. And so, and just like recently, it was just very weird that I felt like I was missing Mataji, just like I missed Babaji. And the interactions between myself and Babaji was much more than it is with Mataji, but I felt like I missed it the same way. And it was just, again, like as much as my mind was trying to grapple with it, this time I was able to tell my mind to calm down and to let my heart just feel what my heart had to feel. And so there's that. And I think a lot of it was triggered by, I remember somebody asked me that, why do I still go to satsang? And, and they were saying that things aren't the same, and, it isn't the same as when Babaji was alive and all this. And I mentioned one thing to that person, that when Babaji was here, when I was in Sangat, in satsang, I connected only to Nirnkar, to the formless, to consciousness. Now, when I go to satsang, that's the only thing that I'm connected to. Yes, I listen to the thoughts. I listen to the thoughts more as if you want to say like a, you know, when you go to the cinema and you watch a movie, and you watch the movie, and that's it, you know, and you enjoy it. That's literally what it is. If anything, I'm only looking for that content, which is taking me to the formless. And even then, I don't need that, because this Brahm Gyan that's been given is the same. And that Brahm Gyan, that ultimate realization, that knowledge of truth, that knowledge of the ultimate reality of Brahman, has not gone anywhere. It hasn't changed. It's still the same. So, in essence, you know, what was the darkest time in my life, today I'm living the brightest time in my life. And it's not because now I know that Babaji hasn't gone anywhere. The Lord of Love remains always in the heart, and Ishvara is always here. So whether it's Mata Savindaji, his wife, she's still my Satguru, Babaji is still my Satguru, and so is Mataji. Mata Sidikshaji, she's my Satguru. And I think what I'm saying is they are all, their essence, because I see them as Ishvara, their essence is of consciousness, and consciousness is essentially formless. So what I'm worshipping, what I'm in love with, what I adore, what's in my heart, is nothing but the formless, nothing but consciousness itself. And bringing all this is what true oneness is. And it's taken me so long to realize this, but a journey that I am so grateful for, a journey that has only empowered me to become a better person and to bring that into my life. So if anything, you know, you can have feelings of oneness, you can have feelings of consciousness, you can experience this thing and you may chase after it, but if it doesn't make you a better human being, then there's really no point of it. And essentially, all I can say is that when you see the Guru in everything, in everyone, life becomes easier. Because, you know, the one thing that happens, and I noticed this when I went to other places of worship, everyone will say that they have the one true Guru or the one true philosophy or whatever. But when you see the sameness in everything, when you have that samdrishti, this is something that Babaji and Mataji talk a lot about, having that same vision. When you have that same vision, then your world opens up to levels which you've never imagined in your life. And you open your heart so much, you expand so much, you become boundless, because there is so much to learn from everyone. And as much as, yes, there's going to be differences, like there's things, I don't believe in duality at all. And there are dualistic philosophies. But that doesn't mean they don't have any right to exist. Of course they do. And they must exist. Who am I to say they shouldn't? You know? But I don't have to follow it. You know, that's my choice. But in essence, I know that non-duality is there because it's the absence of duality. And duality is nothing but the absence of non-duality. And that's what it is. And it's just, and when you go beyond this game, you just see what you need to see. You just see reality. That's all you see. All you see is Brahman. All you see is the self, the consciousness, the Atman. That's all you see. So that's really what I wanted to share is, and you know, yes, I've gone from the darkest time to what is now like the best time in my life. I've started writing poetry again that I'm enjoying, you know, and I used to write poetry all the time during Babaji's, when Babaji was alive, and then even when Babaji died, I wrote poetry, but it was all about the pain of losing him. And now it's about the pain, I mean, not the pain, it's about the joy of being in this, immersing myself in this boundless, formless consciousness. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. And all I can say is I have immense gratitude to my Satguru, to my Guru, and all I know is that I have to be a sincere and honest devotee. That's all. And the more I do that, the more I gain. And the more I enjoy from reading the scriptures, like right now I'm rereading the Upanishads. I'm absolutely loving it because it's just taken me back to what really matters, which is consciousness. And without the Brahm Gyan that my Sadguru gave to me, I don't think I'd be sharing on podcasts. So yeah, anyway, I just want to I'll just leave that with you. Let me know what you think about this episode. Yeah. Take care, everyone. Namaste to you all.